So, in a new interview, Trump says we need a softer approach on immigration after the terrifying January of seeing Americans being murdered by government powered employees or law enforcement members, as they're being told to us, as they're being told to Americans, because these are supposed to be people enforcing the law and helping immigration, but we're getting videos of them beating, abusing, and murdering Americans. So now Trump has said a lot and done a lot of things this week to try to step back from that. But do not for a second, if you could be thinking that Trump is maybe going back on action on his immigration stance, this update on ICE and immigration for this week is going to change that for you. Okay, so in an interview with Tom Yamas on NBC Nightly News, Trump said that Minneapolis showed him a softer touch might be needed on immigration. Then there was a headline on February 4th that the U.S. border czar Tom Homan, who, remember, we talked about this on my channel a couple videos ago last week. Tom Homan was sent to Minneapolis last week to try to handle and tone down the situation, right? He announced the immediate withdrawal of 700 ICE and federal officers from Minnesota, okay? Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, says body cameras are going to all DHS feared officers, okay? All right, and let's look. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says that all DHS field officers will now have body cameras, okay? And a judge limits the Fed's use of weapons against anti-ICE protesters in Portland. All right, so those are a couple headlines that you can maybe think, okay, maybe is Trump seeing the error of his ways? Is he maybe seeing the inhumanity of how he's going about his immigration policies? And is he maybe seeing the fact that in your journey to help immigration in America, maybe you should not be killing Americans and not giving a law enforcement agency the power to basically reign over American cities. You could be thinking, maybe is he having a change on that? Well, let me show you two headlines that can make you think differently. The first one that I'm going to show you is, all right, from the Substack newsletter that I read from Drop Site on about Monday or Tuesday. If you do not have Substack, get it. If you're not going to get it, at the very least, go and follow Drop Site on everything and get the Drop Site newsletter. They do an excellent job of keeping up with news. And I was seeing, this is where I found this, right? And you can see this right here. And you guys can't see that. Expands body camera footage. I talked about that. That's one of the headlines. But this thing right here, Department of Homeland Security labels Portland protest as Antifa leader. And the end of this is what kind of drove me, like, what's going on, okay? The records show the Department of Homeland Security used its intelligence reporting system to collect and store extensive personal data on Patty and other protesters, largely from open source material amplified by right-wing media. Despite public denials that it maintains a domestic terrorist database, all right, Reader. But basically what that means is that there's conversations on if the Department of Homeland Security and ICE has some type of database that they're using to take pictures of and keep information on people that are protesting ICE in person and protesting ICE online. And remember, if you haven't looked at my video, another video I did on Alex Peretti, where there was video of him interacting with ICE a week before he died, and that they had information about him in this database. And this is the second time I was seeing this, and then they have this article that goes to it. Let me see, this is it. This article that goes to it that I read, and this article is just interesting to me, and a little bit of context of this, right? And you could be saying, Garrett, why are you saying this is scary? Okay, they're keeping a database on ICE protesters and people. It's because I'm scared about a hyper technology focused way of policing and going about keeping the law around, of them looking at all of our information, a Big Brother, right? And this reminds me of Big Brother. They are looking at people who are protesting online or in person and keeping a database of them, and that leads to questions of, do these people know the faces? This is the question I asked like 2 weeks ago with like Alex Peretti, or weeks ago with the video of Alex Peretti interacting with ICE and conversation of him maybe being in a database. A question I asked was, When Alex Peretti, the day that he was killed, did those ICE agents recognize him? Was he seen as someone that was a repeat offender, as an agitator, as Trump likes to call them now, as he has called protesters historically, right? Did they recognize him? Are they recognizing these people? And this article kind of gives a little bit of a more of a highlight and a look into that. And this is by a Clint Klippenstein. All right, and this is the first I've ever heard of him, but this is a good article, and I'm going to continue to look at him, and I'm going to link this article in my Twitter, on my X page for this channel. I do all of the links that I do for my tweets and stuff. I put them in here, or put them there, so go to my Twitter to look at that. But 29-year-old Chandler Patty has been regularly protesting outside his local ICE facility in South Portland for months, okay? And let's see. Documents leaked. We're going to skip to the part that about this, like this database they have. Documents leaked to me show Patty and countless other American protesters have been branded as domestic terrorists. As a result, their private information is now being collected and stored in a Department of Homeland Security intelligence system shown below. So this is it, right? I guess this is Patty, identified through open source research as an active participant in protest, all right? Asked about Patty's inclusion in the system and how this squares with spokesperson Trisha McLaughlin's response to my reporting on DHS's watch list, there is no database of domestic terrorists run by DHS. The Department of Homeland Security did not respond to a request for comment. Okay? The government's elevation of an ordinary citizen like Patty to terrorist mastermind is a result of a subtle bureaucratic process revealed in this and other DHS documents I've obtained. They show that since almost the beginning of the Trump administration, DHS has been desperate to pull together evidence, no matter how thin, of an epidemic of left-wing domestic terrorism, okay? So Trump and his administration, since the beginning of 2025, has been getting together to collect information and databases on people who are basically going against them, right? People who are going against them. That is absolutely terrifying for other reasons, because if they're using this for protest, with all of this things with immigration, a lot of people are saying right now that I don't care about it because it doesn't affect me, but you got to look at the other ways that it could affect you and how the things that they're doing in the process and the way of thinking can affect other people, especially if you're black and brown, especially if you're a woman. And the main thing I'll say with this is, if they're using a database to look at protesters, what database could they create on people that just don't like Trump for anyone? For someone like me that just ask questions or doesn't agree with everything says. Is there a database for everyone that's not in the cult of Trump? And if you're not thinking that or asking those questions, you might be in that cult, or you might not be asking the right questions, which is fine. You just need to have someone tell you to ask them. But if you don't think it's terrifying that they're keeping a database of protesters, and that if you're going and protesting, or if you're going online and speaking out about the fact that you don't think it's okay that Americans are being killed by law enforcement agencies that are supposed to protect them, if you don't think it's weird that a database is being put together on those people, that's back to my conversations that I keep having with this, is you probably agree with it and think this is the way that life should be, and you probably think Big Brother is needed, okay? And another story that should not make you think that Trump is doing anything to roll back his immigration strategy and policy, despite some of the headlines that you might have seen this week of him saying we need a softer immigration policy, despite the fact that 500 or 700 DHS agents have been taken out of Minneapolis, and the fact that they're saying that a judge ruled that, DHS and ICE agents in Portland can't use weapons. Despite those things, Trump is still going about this ICE immigration policy in an inhumane way. Is this story of a Columbia Heights fourth grader and her mother released from ICE detention after school officials call attention to her case. And I'm not going to go over this whole thing. I will say I read this last night and it genuinely made me sad. And genuinely made me just get to that point of journalism. I always talk about how I want to be in the middle and how I want to show both sides and give credence to both sides. And I still believe that. And I still believe you should give credence to both sides. And in my reporting, I try to be in the middle. But with Trump and this administration, I'm getting more and more to the part of just saying inhumane, disgusting, and terrible in a dark spot in America. And and ask myself questions on a lot of things. Go look at my video that I recorded today about Trump and what he's doing to try to nationalize the midterm elections and harm democracy, but just also just where the country is leading socially, and just this article just really made me sad and really lean more to that thing of like, okay, we're not, you know, I'm not with not talking to someone because of their political feeling, or I'm not with not being with someone because of their political feeling, but I'm also getting into that stance of the people who are saying, and this is no longer political. And articles like this, cases like this make me think this, and I'm just going to read a second of this. And this is a picture of the little girl, right? That was taken with her mom and held in an ICE detention center for a month. In a statement, a Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said that Elizabeth, that's her name, Elizabeth's mother, Rosa Elena Casio, and I know I'm going to say that wrong, had a final order of removal. Upon discovering a child was in the car, officers allowed her to make a phone call to place the child in custody of someone else she designated, a DHS spokesperson said in a statement. She failed to find a trusted adult to care for the child, so officers kept the family together for the welfare of the child. The DHS spokesperson did not explain why, after Elizabeth successfully made contact with her father, she was not given over to his care. She made contact with her father. They decided to not give him over to his care and kept her with her mother, who they sent to a detention center in Texas in a completely different state in Minneapolis. Keep in mind, this is going on in Minneapolis again. They did not send her with her father. They sent her to the detention center, and they tried to release some sort of statement saying, okay, but we kept the family together. And this is something that kind of pulls from Trump's first term with immigration, where there was all those talks of families being separated. I read this entire article. Go to my Twitter, and I will post the link to this article. This is just one of those ones where you read an article like this, and then you have someone in the Trump cult say to you, we need to get better with immigration. People wouldn't die if they did if they didn't bring guns to if they didn't bring guns to protest. These ICE agents have a job to do, and you can't hurt them. And if you do, or not even hurt them, you can't say or protest them. And if you say or protest them, you deserve what you get. You read an article like this, and then you hear people talk like that, and then you just, that's all I'm going to say. You just become speechless. So that's an update on ICE for this week and what's been going on. Yeah, I don't know. How do you speak up for this is, I guess, where I'll end.